You're listening to the podcast of Iris Josephina. If you're passionate about exploring the menstrual cycle, cyclical living, body wisdom, personal growth, spirituality, and running a business in alignment with your natural cycles, you're in the right place. I'm Iris. I'm an entrepreneur, functional hormone specialist, trainer, and coach, and I am on a mission to share insights, fun facts, and inspiration I discover along the way as I run my business and walk my own path on Earth. Here, you'll hear my personal stories, guest interviews, and vulnerable shares from clients and students. Most people know me from Instagram, where you can find me under @cycleseeds, or they have been a coaching client or student in one of my courses. I'm so grateful you're here. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to a new episode of the Inner Rhythms podcast. This is a bit of an impromptu episode. You may hear some background sounds. My neighbors are vacuuming, moving furniture. But I have inspiration now to share this with you. So you're going to get it raw and real and imperfect. I want to talk about PMS after miscarriage and how this can hit very differently. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I've been going through it. It's been 5 months almost after my miscarriage, and I was speaking with a friend and saying to her the other day, I was like, I don't know what the hell is happening to me, but I become a different person before my period. And this month I timed it. It's about 72 hours, which is roughly 3 days, where I just doubt everything in my life, my work, my relationship, where I live, how I eat, my friends, my family, like everything just crumbles and falls apart. And as someone who usually feels really deeply, but then also is able to provide context with what is happening because I know so much about the body, it was really hard to have the experience be so big and so loud and so overwhelming that I just could not step into my observing self and really look at it from a bit of a distance and go like, okay, Iris, this is what is happening, and try to frame it and explain it so I could surrender into it and relax into it. This was completely different. So I want to reflect on that a little bit. And I also want to share what I learned from this experience. So I want to share about my life and my cycle before my loss, and then I'll briefly share a little bit about my loss, but I have a whole episode about that, so you can go ahead and listen to that. I do want to say and give you a little bit of a trigger warning. I go into detail in that episode, so if you are going through it or you're not ready to hear about an experience like that, maybe don't listen. And I'll share a little bit about my loss in this episode too. So I'll give you a little heads up when I'll share about it. And then I'll share about what I experienced specifically and what I'm doing to support myself. So before my loss, and I've had multiple losses in my life, but this loss felt particularly different because we were very open and ready to have a baby. So it hit way harder this time. And so my premenstrual time before my loss was really manageable. There were familiar patterns, there were predictable symptoms. For me, it's usually that I get more emotionally triggered, my capacity lowers. I used to feel a little bit weepy, but then I would also be able to laugh about it, and I felt tired, and it was usually less intense and it felt less overwhelming than how I experienced it right now. So I'm going to share a little bit about my loss right now. So my loss happened in a like beautiful context with women around me. There was food cooked for me. It happened during a retreat that I was organizing. So in that moment, I felt really, supported and nourished and held by this group of women that I was leading. And the shock for me came after I got home on my own. My partner works abroad. He isn't home all the time. Like, we really need to, plan our time together. He's an airline pilot, so we have a very non-standard relationship because of his work. And so when I came home, I was on my own and there was no support. And I think because in that moment, I was technically postpartum and there was no support. There weren't any of my long-term friends. My family wasn't there. My partner wasn't there. And I just spiraled. Like, I spiraled so fucking deep at first that I just could not cope. And it just felt like an endless luteal phase that hit me 1,000 times harder. So, and I'm only realizing now that every luteal phase that has come after the loss had something to teach me about the loss and how much I wasn't processing about the loss would show up like in my face, in my luteal phase. And for the last 5 months, I'm going to be honest, it's been hell. My luteal phase has been absolute hell. Oh no, I actually should say my premenstruum. So really the 3-4 days before my period, not the entire luteal phase, but really the premenstrual time, the 3 to 4 days before I had to bleed. And everything feels and felt so much louder. I would have mood swings, and I'm strict with my food and my protein and my fat and my sunlight and my sleep. Like, me, like this is my jam. This is my stuff. So I'm on point with all the things I should be doing. But still, there would be so much intensity, so much rage, irritability, like deep, like sadness. I would have like physical pain in my body. I would not be able to sleep. I would just lay in my bed, have my eyes wide open and go like, why the fuck can I not sleep? I would be very, very tired. My legs would feel like they were 1,000,000 kilograms. I didn't really have, and I don't really have like specific cravings. It's more like my hunger is gone. Like, I feel like in the background there is some hunger, but not like forefront cravings. And I would have like a lot of triggers around, stuff that other people were like struggling with. And I would have this urge. I have like a hyper urge to help and fix things around that time because it makes me feel purposeful and it takes the attention off of my own intensity. And I think what caught me most off guard is that I did not expect that every single like premenstruum, these 3 to 4 days before my period, would feel so intense. So what really caught me off guard was that I wasn't expecting this to feel like grief all over again. And how I can best explain it is that I moved through all stages of grief over a period of 72 hours every single month. And I feel that this part after loss is very rarely talked about. And especially when, you cannot share something visual of a loss with people after a loss. Like, you don't actually have an actual baby yet. It's so conceptual and people just forget it happened. And obviously, I have been trying to understand what happens in the body. And so For some people, there can be hormonal shifts post pregnancy that drag on for like months on end to balance out. Now, for me, I had my ovulation back the month after I had my loss. And since then, my cycles just have been within the normal range. I ovulated every month. My luteal phases are a good length. For me, I don't see any ratio imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. I'm so sorry. My neighbors are just so loud. Oh my goodness. I hope this also just makes the podcast really real that I'm just in my office sweating like a pig because I can't have my AC on because it's disturbing for the podcast. So, yeah, this is it. This is it, people. You'll have to deal with this. So I'm not seeing any estrogen progesterone dysregulation in my body from what I know. What I do feel that is the case for me is that my nervous system is still revved up from the loss, and I haven't really like landed in my nervous system and do enough nervous system support work to really regulate my nervous system after the loss. And then I also feel that luteal and specifically premenstruum is really where the emotional imprints of loss in the body or that happen through the body resurface. And I call it the cyclical memory of trauma, and not necessarily like an immensely intense event, because I didn't really experience my loss as extremely intense. It was mostly really sad and very emotional. And I could like conceptually and contextually place it. But what I feel that happens for me, that before I bleed, when this veil is so thin, right before the physical loss, my body tries to show me the emotional imprints of loss that happen through my body. And it's not just my pregnancy loss that comes forward. It's the loss of my grandmothers, the loss of my grandfathers, the loss of my father, that are always coming into my consciousness before I bleed. And this is also why I don't want to look at luteal and premenstruum as just like, oh, an hormonal event. Because for me, these times and through the loss and the last couple of months, I'm really learning that this is also where our emotional blueprints are resurfacing and where we are invited to witness our grief. And this is the wisdom that I'm taking from this. But it hasn't been easy, I'm going to tell you that. And I've gotten into like a lot of rupture and a lot of almost like conflict, specifically with my partner, because he obviously hasn't experienced this through his body. And what happens for me is that my way of processing anything, so also grief, is through word vomit. And I made like the comparison to my partner, like it's like a blank canvas and the words are the paint. And it's not necessarily about what I'm painting, but it's about the emotion that's underneath. So I'm vomiting a lot of words that don't really coherently make sense. But my need is really about wanting to be met in the emotion that is underneath. But obviously, when you don't give context about that, you're just going to word vomit onto someone, which is what I did. It's very overwhelming for a person. So I had to really, and my partner is really good at mirroring, like, hello, I'm not understanding what is happening, and firing back at me. And so I really had to, like, after this storm was over for me, to sit down and go like, okay, what happened here? What happens in my body specifically? And what is the meaning of my word vomit. And the meaning of my word vomit is that the grief and the emotions need to be voiced in some way, shape, or form. And they need a safe place to land. And then there needs to be a witness for the emotion. It doesn't have to be understood. It doesn't have to have like meaning attached to it, but it just has, it needs a safe space to land, really. And it's not easy to have that. And there is a lot of like tending that is needed for an emotion to be able to like properly land somewhere. And I had to figure this out, I was like, why am I feeling things so intensely and I can't stop word vomiting? And there is so much that needs to come out and it doesn't make sense. And I can't even remember what I said. And my partner, he's so sweet. He was like, I need to sit down and I need to read what you said. And then I'll come back to you because you deserve like a big answer from me. You deserve this all to be processed and read. And then that I come back to you with like an elaborate answer, which is very obviously sweet, but it was not what I needed. And I had to learn like, what is it actually that my need is underneath all of this chaos? And then I had to like define my need and then find the right words to help my partner understand so I can get the support that I need. And I also needed my sisters. I noticed so deeply that whenever I'm going through something deeply cyclical, I need to share with people who also experience a menstrual cycle, who potentially also have gone through a similar experience of an intense luteal phase, of an intense premenstruum, or maybe even a loss or some other cyclical event that is relatable. And so my biggest support for this was like attaching a timeline to it and really, really telling myself, Iris, this is a timed event. You're only going to feel like shit for a marked period of time. This is not forever. This is not forever. This will pass. This will go over as soon as your body is ready to release. And it's true. My period started today. I feel so peaceful. When I now think about how intense it was, like yesterday and the day before yesterday, actually, the day before yesterday was the worst. I'm like, was that me? Was that me? And I read some of the things that I'm said. I'm like, what? Did I say this? And what I really needed was to hear back from sisters, from people with menstrual cycles, from my girlfriends, my friends. Like, you're not crazy. This is normal that this happens now. And you're doing the best that you can right now. And I really had to come to terms with, okay, I need to just share and share with different people, my partner, my friends, and just let it land. And I know these people, respect me and love me for who I am, but it's been hard. And I'm grateful that I can share now after all of this happened. And it's not easy for me to like come forward and say like, hey, my last 5 months have been really shit when it comes to, my own luteal time. And most of my luteal phases have been very mild and gentle. But after this loss, my goodness, it swept me off my feet in a not a good way. And I just wanted to share my experience because I know, and if you follow me on Instagram, there's so many of you who maybe have an idea that I do so many things so good for my body. And I think I do, like I have a great rhythm, I eat great food, I know I do all these things and I love doing it and I love, taking care of my body. But I also go through shit. And there is also a lot of moments where I just go like, what the hell, body? what are you doing? Like, can I please have peace? Like, I know you can go through very intense things, but can I please have peace now? You know? And yeah, it hasn't been easy. It really hasn't been easy. And I feel I want to be honest about that, because when you're in this field, people think you have it all figured out. And I have a lot of things figured out. And I love that I have these things figured out. But I also learn a lot from what my body goes through. And there is something new to learn, from every experience. And I'm telling you, this loss just slammed me flat on my face. And it's been a very humbling, yeah, that's the best word, a very humbling experience to go through this and to fall to my knees and go like, now what? I just want to say, if you're going through something with your cycle right now, honor where you are. And if your cycle feels different after loss, maybe you feel broken, but you're not broken. I have felt broken in the last couple of months, and I had to constantly remind myself, I'm not broken. I'm not broken. I'm not broken. And I really had to support myself through it and take each moment in my cycle as an opportunity to learn something new about myself. And I also want to say it's not easy. I have cursed at my body. I have cursed at the experience. I have been sobbing and wailing and falling to the ground and going like, what the fuck, man? Why does it have to be like this? And this is also part of life. And this is also something that passes. It's not forever. And for me, like, I know this is going to be over in 73 hours. The intensity that I'm feeling right now will go at some point, and you'll sense it and you'll feel it, and trust your body that it comes. The moment that you will feel a little bit more peaceful, it will come. And that's my post-loss wisdom for today. I know it was raw. I know it wasn't perfect. I know my neighbors were doing God knows what. But I feel like I want to make more of these types of episodes so that you get to know me a little bit better, and you get to know about my experience, and hopefully you can find some recognition in my experience, and maybe it makes you feel a little bit better. Maybe it reminds you that you're not broken, and maybe it is of some support for you. I just want to thank you for making it to the end of this episode. If you want to share your own story, I always, always, always am open to receive. You can go to Instagram and share it via DM, or send me an email, or share here under the podcast. And I would love to hear from you. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening. Okay, this wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Want to know more about me? The best way to reach me is via @cycleseeds on Instagram. And if you heard something today and you think, oh my God, wow, I learned something new, feel free to share the podcast on your social media and tag me. Or leave a review or rating. In this way, you help me reach more people like you. Thank you so much.